Welcome back, welcome back. After almost 2 years of stalemate, the leaders of Israel and Palestine resumed direct negotiations 2 weeks ago, and then again this week in Sharm el-Sheikh and now Jerusalem. At the heart of any agreement will be the issue of settlements, of course, and the Israelis demand that the Palestinians recognize Israel as a Jewish state. Just two of the problems that have to be solved. Well, I'm joined now by a senior member of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, who is also himself a Muslim and a Bedouin, a remarkable, in fact probably unique combination. Ishmael Khaldi is that Bedouin Arab who spent the first 8 years of his life living in a tent and working as a shepherd. Not anymore. Today, he's in the ranks, he's risen up to near the top of the Israeli Foreign Service to become Senior Policy Advisor for Arab Affairs. Ishmael, welcome.
Thank you.
And in terms of going right back to your beginning, we read somewhere that you were living in a tent until you were 8. What was your first memory? What is your first memory going back even before 8 of your Bedouin life?
Waking up at 4 o'clock every morning, helping my mother, feeding the animals that we had, then jumping out in the winter to play in the mud, go take care of the animals that we had, later go to school, walk 6 kilometers each way to the other school for kindergarten.
And in terms you had to walk to school and so on, and at that age, when you were small, the thought that one day you would be in the Foreign Service of Israel would have been impossible, really, wouldn't it? When did that sort of ambition come along?
Well, that came later when I was at high school. Because from the beginning, you know, we had in the village, it was a little Bedouin village. We had no electricity, no running water even, but we had a little TV, black and white. We could hear about America, about Britain, about the entire world. And my ambition was, one day I want to go to Washington, D.C. One day I want to go to London. But in high school, when I went to high school, I remember very well that the first question they asked us at the English class is, what do you want to be when you are big, when you are older? I looked, and I said, I want to be a father.
I want to be a father.
I didn't say I want to be a pilot. I don't want to be a doctor or an engineer or a diplomat.
Were you still thinking then of yourself as a Bedouin or a Bedouin Muslim or an Israeli? And what do you say if someone asks you in the street now?
Well, first of all and above all, I'm a Bedouin. It's the values, it's the heritage, it's the commitment to family, it's the hospitality, which is the best known part of our culture. This is who I am. But of course, I'm a Muslim and I am Israeli.
So all three at once?
All three at once.
And now, with Benjamin Netanyahu saying in these talks and a couple of weeks ago that in fact the Palestinians must acknowledge that Israel is a Jewish state. When you hear that, does that sound odd? Because you're not really Jewish.
Let me tell you this. You know, being a Jewish state with a declaration of independence to respect each minority and each group within the country, that is above everything. Yes, it is a Jewish state. I have no problem with that. Living as a Muslim, of course, I am keeping my religion, my tradition, my heritage. The country respects me, gives me the freedom of expression, the freedom of a religion. And I think, yes, you know, the mutual respect is the base of Bedouin culture. And I think that if not only the Palestinians, but the entire Arab world wants to live with peace with Israel, in peace with Israel, a basic thing is a recognition for each other.
Yes, last week we did a special with Tony Blair, special program last week on Al Jazeera English with Tony Blair, talking on the publication of his new book and so on. And we were talking about these talks that are continuing at the moment, and obviously of the vital role. And I said to him, you know, is it possible at all that there could be a deal done between Israel and the Palestinians that Gaza was no part of, was completely not involved, and This is what he had to say about that.
There's no solution to this that puts Gaza to one side, and I've said that throughout. The reason I wanted policy change towards Gaza was because I think it is essential that we give people in Gaza some hope for the future, that we show them that whatever disagreements we have with the de facto government there, which is Hamas, nonetheless we're going to do our best to help the people. If we manage to get a peace process going where everyone forswears the use of violence, you know, we've got a chance of helping people in Gaza far more than the present situation, which is still very much a standoff.
Well, do you think he's right there that Gaza must be part of this settlement?
They are part, and they have to be part of the deal. The question is not Gaza. The question is the leadership in Gaza. I think the Palestinians have a huge responsibility right now, from Hamas to the Palestinian Authority, how to unite this leadership. To be united, they will have to decide among themselves.
And Mr. Lieberman, the Foreign Secretary, Foreign Minister, your boss, must be an interesting, to put it mildly, but controversial figure to work for. He is a controversial figure, isn't he?
He's very realistic, you know, and he's saying that day and night. You know, he is perceived as a right-wing politician, but he's very realistic, and he's saying, you know, his attitude, his opinions day and night. Everything depends on the intentions. Once there are serious intentions, things can be solved. All of those problems, from the settlements to the borders to the even yes, recognizing Israel as a Jewish state, become, you know, secondary problems. Avigdor Lieberman, as foreign minister, said clearly last year that he is ready to go even to Damascus to speak with President Assad in Syria. If we see the seriousness, you know, to sit down and speak. You know, in diplomacy, there's no winners and losers. You don't have to give up. You have to compromise. And that's even deep in my culture. You know, tribes, Bedouin tribes used to fight with each other and compete with each other. But at the end of the road, they sit down at the same table and, you know, finding a compromise, finding a solution.
Well, maybe the basis is there that we should adopt Bedouin principles in trying to find peace. But as you just said at the beginning of the answer as well, everybody has to have serious intentions. And there are people who doubt that Israel has serious intentions or that the Palestinians have serious intentions. And we'll have to see what happens next, but we hope to welcome you back here in happier days.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A disgrace. That's how the EU Justice Commissioner Viviane Reding described the French government's deportation of Roma migrants, a comment which provoked a furious response from Nicolas Sarkozy, a row with Commission President Barroso, and a public spat between French and Germans. Since July, France has deported over 1,000 Roma back to Romania and Bulgaria, accusing them of settling in France illegally. But a leaked memo from the Interior Ministry showed that the French authorities had been instructed to target Roma camps, rather than deal with migrants on a case-by-case basis, as the French had assured the European Commission was the case. So is France breaking EU law, and is it risking inter-European disharmony instead of harmony? I'm joined now by a member of the European, leading member indeed of the European Parliament. We're delighted to welcome Claude Moraes. Claude, welcome first of all. Tell me, the basic question we said there, has France been breaking the law, the EU law, so far?
Yes, and why do we know that? We know it because just a few days ago, Sir David, there was a leaked memo, an administrative circular, which basically said we're moving these people on because they're Roma and they have encampments. Now, until that memo was leaked, famously a few days ago, there was no real evidence for the European Commission to say this, that you can deport Roma, because you can, if they commit crimes, if they are not conducive to the public good. It's possible to do it. Free movement is not unconditional. But there was no evidence that France had gone case by case or not gone case by case. European law says in order to deport a Roma person, you have to look at that individual case. You can't take a whole set of people and deport them just because they're Roma. So this administrative circular gave the evidence that Commissioner Reding, Viviane Reding, needed to start taking infringement proceedings against France. That was the big development, and I think unless that had happened, that leak had happened, we wouldn't have had a situation where the Commission would have acted against France because they didn't have the evidence. So
this was crucial.
Crucial.
And now, what will happen next, do you think, in terms of what action can be taken effectively against France by the Commission or indeed anybody else?
Well, theoretically now, the Commission goes ahead. It takes these things called infringement proceedings. In human language, that means they can fine massively the French government, which is embarrassing for an original member state of the EU. It very rarely happens. Or they could take France to court, the European Court of Justice. Again, deeply embarrassing to be taken to the European Court of Justice when you're a country which helped create the notion of human rights. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. It happened to Austria, if you remember, back in 2000 when Jörg Haider, the fascist leader, was elected. Diplomatic sanctions were taken. But this is France. This is an original member of the EU. So that's what the Commission can do.
That's what they can do. Will they do something? Will they do it or something else? Will they have the nerve to do it now after everything that's gone on in the last few days? And we've got a mega row now between Sarkozy and Mrs. Merkel over the question. Mrs. Merkel denying that what Sarkozy had said about the fact that Mrs. Merkel had said she was going to copy Sarkozy. No way, I had no such discussion at all, she said. So there's that as well, isn't
Absolutely. There? Until yesterday, I would have said definitely yes. I met Mrs. Reding myself. I put pressure on her because I wrote the resolution in the Parliament, and she would have definitely done it until today and yesterday. What's happening now is massive political pressure is being put on the Commission by France, by Sarkozy himself. And what Sarkozy is saying to Viviane Reding is, I'm going to your boss, Barroso, and I'm telling him that you cannot do this to France. We are France. You cannot do this. Viviane Reding is saying France is not above the law. So now it's all about political pressure. And we're actually seeing, and I'm seeing Commissioner Reding on Tuesday morning in Strasbourg, where she will tell us as parliamentarians exactly what she's going to do. I really hope she's true to her word, because she is saying, I have evidence, I have to be the so-called guardian of the European treaties as a commissioner. And for that reason, I think in the end, France will have to have these infringement proceedings taken against it, because the evidence is clear.
So that's going, in the end, the outcome is going to be that somehow there is a reproof or a punishment for France.
Absolutely, and so David, the reason for that is because if they don't do it, Sweden is deporting Roma, Italy is preparing to do more, Denmark has done it. If you don't send that warning shot, you're going to have other countries taking these kinds of populist measures, and they are popular, by the way. In France, it's a popular measure domestically. And that's the problem for the Commission, because everyone then will be breaking EU law and they'll have a wildfire on their hands.
Claude, that's very clear. We'll see what happens next. Look forward to hearing your reactions to it all. Thank you very much indeed, Claude.
Pleasure.
We'll take a break there and we'll come rushing straight back.